Hello and welcome to International Firefighters Day. My name is Peter Matthews. I'm the editor here at Firehouse, and I appreciate you joining us. We have a really exciting program today. This is, again, a few years in the making. We've tried to set some of these up, but just due to time constraints and availabilities, time zone differences, and even some folks that were unable to uh, come on to the show because they feared how their English would be presented. We're excited today to kind of look at International Firefighters Day with a firefighter from New Jersey and also a firefighter from Poland who's joining us. So we have Rob Policht. Rob's been a writer for us for a couple of years. He's been on our podcast. He's been featured in Personality Behind the Profile. We also have Michał Baranowski from Poland. They connected. Rob actually just came back from Poland just about a month and a half ago. And when Rob kind of gave me an update about his trip, I thought it was a great opportunity to say, hey, let's do this. Let's get some folks on. Let's talk about the International Fire Service. A lot of us know folks, from vacationing or, folks we meet on social media. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to kind of look at some of the differences in the fire service here in the US and then in Poland and vice versa. And again, yeah, for those of you who follow me, I was in Austria 2 years ago. Total different approach to, or total different view of the International Fire Service after I was there. They just actually lost a member in the community that we visited. Saw the memorial service there. I mean, it was a true firefighter's funeral that they put on. Talking to some of the members there, it's the fire service is the same. It's the same fabric no matter where you go. But the operations are different. The approach to tactics is different. But again, you've got different types of building instruction, water supplies, the equipment, all that stuff that varies. So I'd like to introduce both Rob and Michał. And Rob, if you can just give us a little background about yourself in the fire service.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Rob Policht. I'm a lieutenant in the city of Passaic. Couple of years now. I've been a volley my whole life, as many of you know, and you know, just great to get together again, get some recording, and I met Michał a couple of years ago on Instagram through FloNvet and his page FireTrap PL, and he visited last year when he was in the region, and we got together and we said we had to work together and do something interesting, do something fun. Everybody knows I'm Polish and whatnot. So for me, it was a full circle moment to actually go back and to link up with Mike and do a little training. And we'll dive into this a little bit later, but we did a class and he did a class, and it was kind of cool to kind of bridge that gap. And for me, full circle moment with my family's background and things like that. So
Awesome. Well, thanks, Rob. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in the fire service and how long you've been involved with it, please?
Yeah, I was a firefighter for 15 years, volunteer firefighter. Now I'm not a member of the any fire department, but since 2017 I'm a co-founder of FireTrap.pl, and we are first private training center in Poland. And we are making trainings for people from Poland and from other countries from Europe. And we mostly focus on firefighter survival, possible and rapid intervention team, air management, rope rescue, and many others. So now I'm another firefighter in a fire station. Now I'm a just instructor in a private training academy.
Great. That sounds phenomenal. And again, I've heard some stuff about your programs and your facility. It sounds like a great place to be. So again, thanks for joining us. So Rob, talk a little bit more about, your trip over there, how you got involved, how those discussions started, right? It started over a water can, right?
yeah, I
And
mean,
now you're on a plane.
yeah, no, it was kind of funny. Maybe now, I guess. I mean, really, it was last summer. Mike came to come out to visit, the U.S. and check out New York and the big city and things like that. And I saw he was doing a training with Perone on Long Island with Firehouse Innovations, doing the blue door. So I DM'd him. I'm like, and I've been following him for a couple of years, and I was like, why don't you come over here? You're so close. I'm Polish. I mean, first generation, but I still speak a little bit, as we found out over there when we did the class. But so a couple of days later, came out to visit over in Passaic, and we got to talking, and it was unique because Mike was taking a lot of pictures of the gear, the bailout stuff, and it was kind of cool to like be set back for a second, like, hey, there's actually, we do take some things for granted. A couple months later, fly by, now we're still chatting. We talk weekly now. We were texting back and forth, and he's like, hey, why don't we do some kind of training? I was like, I mean, absolutely. I'd have to, I have grandparents there still. I got family over there, so I was like, it could be a 2-for-1 opportunity to go actually do some fire stuff and to also see, my roots and my family and whatnot. So at one point, Mike's like, "Hey, what do you do with water cans? How is that a thing?" Because for and Michał can touch on this, like they really didn't run water cans over there, So for us, I told him, "Hey, that's our bread and butter." Me on the truck company, that's all I got is at 2.5 gallons, and on some days it's a little bit less than that with the equipment, but you know. So yeah, no problem. I like doing it in the volleys. We push it in around here where I grew up. At work, we use it all the time for a lot of stuff. And he's like, "Do you have any footage or videos or any media?" I'm like, of course. I sent him a couple of videos, and I was like, "All right, maybe we have something here, something tenable." So conversation started. We started putting things together, and lo and behold, what last month, the first week of March, we were out there. We got to do I mean, it was phenomenal for me. It was just being able to go to live burn, run a class, and the training was I had fun with it. It seemed like a lot of the guys over there had fun with it. Um, but it was good. The day before he took us to another location, where we got to do what Mike teaches, his their version of firefighter safety and survival and RIT management, things like this, and a little bit of the a different take on bailout. Right, in the U.S., we're very big on wearing the bailout in the right pocket or left pocket or whatever on your bunker pants, on your turnout pants. And over there, we were using it on the chest harness, the other way of using the Petzl system. So it was fun. It was all around. It was a lot of good laughs, a lot of good memories, a lot of good times over there. And when we went out there, I went out with two guys from over here as well, Dave and Ben. And they're not Polish. They don't know much about the culture besides watching Lewandowski play for Barcelona or something. And it was just cool, for me. Again, I grew up in the U.S. But both my parents came over here, during the 80s and whatnot. So, I grew up with Polish grandparents and the language and the food and the culture, and just being able to go back for me personally was epic. And then just to see my friends be able to go and like, yes, we lived the touristy 5 days there, but 2 of the days we were with my family, and one day we were with Mike and his guys, and it was just, the cultural differences. We're not that different, but we are different. And I'm sure we'll dive into that a little bit later on, but with the fire stuff. But that's kind of how it all blossomed, broke out, and long term, I think hopefully we could pull this off something every year, every other year, or something like that. Maybe that's kind of the whole trip in a nutshell, per se.
Okay. It sounds like, again, a phenomenal experience. And so, Michał, how did you get involved with coming over to the U.S. to see what they were doing here? What was that trip? What was the purpose of that trip, and how did you get connected?
Okay, are you asking about this trip from last year?
Yeah, pierwszy raz.
Yeah. It was 1 week, mostly for holiday in New York, but I found the information about this training with Mike Peron from Firehouse Innovations. I'm a forcible entry instructor, and so it was something interesting for me. And I met Robert. It was the first time when I visited United States fire station. So everything was different, different equipment, different fire trucks, everything is different. So it made something impressive for me. So I'm very happy. And this year I was also in the United States, in Indianapolis. So I'm very happy to share knowledge with people from USA.
Great. And so when you came to the trip last year, again, you talked about some of the differences. What were some of the biggest differences you noticed, whether it was the apparatus, the equipment, the training? What really stood out from what you're used to back home to compared to what we have here?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is very difficult because I think everything is different. Equipment, fire trucks, even fires are different because we have different buildings. And I think one of most different things is that in Poland we don't have something like a ladder team. We have ladders, but ladder is just a tool for engine team. So on most ladders we have only a driver, and when we need a ladder, we have to send a ladder and engine, and people from engine are operating the ladder. So I think this is something what people from USA can't understand.
No, I understood completely. Again, when I was in Austria, two of the stations I was at, they had multiple ladder trucks, right? It was based on the part of the city where they were responding. And they were staffed with just two. They had two firefighters on board. But, if they had to go into an older part of the city, they had a really narrow, small piece. And, those buildings are only 3 stories high. So they had like a 35-foot ladder. But it was interesting, their approach to it, right? Most of the equipment is carried on the pumpers here, in Austria, or the rescue trucks, whereas the ladder trucks are pretty much just a ladder with some basic tools. So interesting that it's the same there in Poland. So what about the gear, the training, that kind of stuff that you had witnessed when you were here, whether it was just here at FDIC or when you were in New York? Any other big differences that you saw there?
Yes, of course. You have to note that I think in Poland we have very good modern equipment, but I think we have still very bad skills. So we have better equipment than skills. And if we're talking about what is different, I think we still can't learn about on real accidents. So I think when you have some accidents in US, you can learn about the factors and you know what to do after this accident. But we are still thinking that there is no something like line of duty that we don't like to learn about this accidents. So of course we can talk about the difference in equipment, but I think the major difference is the mindset.
Okay. Okay, great. And Rob, anything to chime in on that?
So,
Again, based on your experiences there.
Yeah, I hit twofold. Like, I agree with him. Like, I think the U.S. does do a great job of, the NIOSH reports, the line of duty reports, just even in-house when there's an accident, there's something small. Like, we do kind of get serious all the time to break it down, see what happened, not to get into a litigious conversation, but we got to figure out why it happened, what happened, and, how to avoid it going forward. But on the turnout side of the gear, Michał and his guys over at Kadimex, and give me extra the movie. Those guys hooked us up. Kadimex, that's a company out there, similar to any of our big vendors in the U.S. And the first day that we went out there to go train with him on his RIT day before the can day, I'm expecting to use turnout gear. What do we do in the U.S., right? We get here, hey, somebody's coming to visit. Can they drill with us? All right, maybe. All right, sure. Let's get them a used set of gear for the day. These guys, I'm still shocked to this day. Like, they hooked us up with a set of brand new gear. I think it was called Ballyclare, I think was the brand. And, I still talk about it today. Like, for me, yes, everybody knows the Euro helmet and the for the US standards, the unique striping of European gear, whether it's, lime and reflective and all this stuff and all the tags and nameplates and stuff like that. But let me tell you straight up, like the first day we caught rain, and realistically, we didn't let the stuff hang out to dry like you traditionally would in a firehouse, or even like post hockey, just laying your gear out. So it was a little damp, but we put it on the next day with no issues, right? It wasn't like overkill like some of the stuff we work with today. Then when we did can day, when it was the burn day, and Michał will tell you, we spent like a solid minimum 6 hours in that burn room training in the basement. Being an instructor up here, being just burning fires and things like that, like. Listen, there's no secret, I'm a huge fan of Morning Pride. We could go into any vendor and dive deep down into anything, but wearing this stuff for 6 hours in a burn room, stoking the fire, working with guys, doing evolutions, like I didn't feel beat up at all. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to be like, oh, we should, but maybe there's something said out there outside of our borders to see differences and stuff. The boots, I don't know. I think the boots were like a Czech company.
Yeah.
They were, like, I can't wait till they get here. I'm going to wear them for everything. Honestly, they were like top of line. It was like wearing station boots, and they do have Hakes out there as well. Also, what was interesting for me was they have a glove brand called Holik, like Bobby Holik, from the former Devils. And, those were even fun to work with because, like, for me, it was, I didn't know what I was jumping into. Like, I was like, all right, like, I'll be honest, when we do something, if we have a guest, we try to get you a good set of old gear, clean it up, make it presentable. Like, these guys came out of, I did not expect that. But turnout gear wise, and I think this might turn into another conversation. One of the things I'm most grateful about this trip was kind of like a humbling moment with the gloves. I know on Mike's page, he's always pushing wearing the like medical gloves, nitrile gloves under your turnout gloves.
Yeah.
And what happens here for most of the time, people are like, oh, they're gonna melt. You guys are just being, silly. Yeah, but he'll tell you like when we were gearing up for the burn day, he pulls out a pair of gloves and I'm like, we don't wear them. He's like, what? So I was like, you're right. I'm in Poland. I'm going to do as you guys do. I'm going to try it out. And let me tell you, I wore those medical gloves under my turnout gloves for the day, sat in the burn room and this was a Rob moment. I kind of pulled a move where I forgot that we were in Celsius, not Fahrenheit on the tick. So the room was pretty warm for the most of the day, but wearing the gloves under your gear, my hands weren't nasty, and I think
Yeah.
that's now having a son and just life, right? We're getting older. Like, that's something small that you could do every day here in the US, that I think should be added to the whole like turnout gear, PPE, cancer prevention discussion because, everybody, we sees what's going on here and, everybody's like, oh, I'll go get my annual test or I'll go get this, but just throwing on a pair of nitrile gloves under your turnout gloves can make a huge difference in the long run. Because what happens? You take a blow, you get out of the building, you start doing stuff, and all that crap is literally, we're eating pizza slices or whatever on the scene and it turns into a mess. But listen, even when you're like, whether or not you're using heat strap things or anything like that, if you got those gloves on, it's 10 times easier to put a glove back on too,
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest turnout takeaways I took is yes, there is stuff beyond our borders. I know we have like the US is the fire service in the world. Like we have the gamut on that, like the NFL, like football is American, the fire service or FDNY fire trucks and LA fire trucks and things like that nature. But we do have to kind of look and research and get out there a little bit, make a difference. That's get out of your bubble. And if your bubble's not your small town, don't be afraid to just look outside the U.S. sometimes to see what's going on there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, some of the academies I've been to here, for some different events. I mean, most of their instructors, especially if they're in there all day, again, yeah, they are wearing that, right? And I mean, even you look at post fire decon, some folks are wearing gloves again because they know they're picking it up. Some don't, right? And I guess it's
Mm.
like anything else, right? There's suggestions that are put out there, there's policies that are put out there. But if you're not wearing it, so be it. But it does your hands do get dirty pretty damn quick, and to be able to just prevent that from being in there. I mean, one of the guys at one of the local colleges was telling me, he was in one day for almost 6 hours on a 12-hour rookie day, and he said, he got home and it was 3 or 4 days. He was off, it was like a Friday thing, so he's probably off Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then went back in Tuesday and said he just couldn't get his hands clean, right? So again, obviously that's seeping into your system. So to take that step, right? And I think, another good point that you brought up too is it keeps some of that moisture in there. Obviously, again, you have to be hyper aware of what's going on, right? So
Sure.
you don't get any steam issues, but again, it provides that extra layer of protection that you're already putting on 10 times a day going on an EMS run. You might as well throw it on, for that one fire that you're going to get a day. So good point. Great point. Okay. All right. So Rob, when you went over there again, let's talk about the can. I'd like to hear both of your perspectives of the can. Again, obviously, it's something very common here in the U.S. Even the cans vary, right? Chicago has their pump can, and when I lived
Sure.
in St. Paul, they had a pump can, but it was really a water can. They called it a pump can. But let's just talk about that. Like again, just kind of creating that as a basis of training, 2.5 gallons of water and what it does. How is the training over there? How is it for them? And then, Miko, I'd love to hear your perspective again of just, how having your students see how that actually truly works, and then having, Rob come in to talk about it and show, hey, we can do a lot of firefighting with just simply 2.5 gallons of water.
Yeah. You have to know that there were no water can extinguishers in Poland until this year. So this is something new for us. That now you can buy fire extinguishers in Poland. But we have still some problem with mindset because we are learning that always you have to have a hose line inside the building. So after this training, people know when you can use a fire extinguisher, why it is so good. I have asked some people after workshop, they know now how to use it, but they think that the major problem is how to explain this for their colleagues. So I think we had a lot of work to do to share this idea with WaterCamp. This is something new for us. Of course, we don't like new things. Of course, like every people.
So it's all of the fire service. It's not just
yes, of
all
course.
the fire service does it. Okay,
yeah,
good to know. See, okay, that's worth it right there. I appreciate that. Okay.
No, but it was awesome because I know like even when the idea came up, we were talking like, hey, what do we use? One of their training facilities, do we use a live burn facility? What makes it more real? Because I agree with him. Even in anything we do, like, you can't teach a dog all the tricks, or like you guys just mentioned, like, we hate two things, right? Change in the way it is. So, for me, it was kind of unique, and bringing it back home, like, we take the water can for granted, right? Every rig's got one. The Chiefs cars have them. Some trucks have 3, 4 of them. There's laying in the back of the bays, and in some places it's like new. And it's crazy because for me, I was always a big water can kid, and it is what like there's one right here. I don't carry. I'm a super buff. Like, we have our own with all my stuff in the basement. So instead of your regular kitchen appliance, every fireman knows the water can's the way to go. But just being able to go back and teach it was unique, because even when we were talking about like who's going to be in the class, for me, that was, as an instructor, just putting this together. I mean, the class was simple, right? It was basically can confidence. We were just going over what it is, how much it weighs, what you could do with it, stream reach, the time, your basic maintenance, dumping it, what happens, how do we refill it, things like that. But like Michael said, the biggest thing, and I'll never forget it, jak się nazywał ten, the guy that couldn't understand the class, the one instructor, ten starszy taki. There was one dude in the class, and I'm explaining, hey, I'm on a truck company at work. We ride with 3. It's a driver, officer, and a tillerman, and we use this as the first lines, as as the engine company's arriving, hitting the hydrant, stretching in. My job is to get in there as quick as possible and hit a knock on this, locate the fire, isolate it, hit something on it so I can make something happen. And this one gentleman, Michał, jak masz 4-star? What does that mean?
Captain.
Like a captain. One of the bosses was like, what do you mean you just go inside with 1 or 2 guys before the engine's there? So like that mindset, that whole, like it's for us. I mean, you think of it.
His brain was explode.
Yeah, he was like, wait, what? I go, it makes a big difference. So, even just like watching after Michał told me like, hey, watch that guy. Like, everybody involved, both, and what was cool about it was both career and volunteer there involved. There was volunteers, there was career guys there. And it was a very good pool of folks because, a lot of people, at first it was like, hey, what are we doing? Let's go. We set up a little burn room in the basement area of an old brick making factory. It was phenomenal. Right. They got different roles over there. And, your standard, you go in, Michał would bring the guys down the basement, meet me in the corridor. I'd bring him into the burn room. And it was like a really quick, down and dirty, hey, remember how to use your tick, use the camera, look everything around, close the door, get the can working. And I know we did share a couple of videos where, at first, like the keyboard warrior's like, wait, what are you doing? But, when you first introduce a water can or any kind of extinguishing agent, you have to explain, like, listen, everybody knows hitting the seat of the fire, right? If we hit the crib fire, if we hit the pallets, we hit that, we know it's going to eventually go out. But if something happens and you hit, the overhead, and then you hit that middle space, like how it changes, that was the biggest thing, which I actually appreciated a lot from the guys, because, they were understanding like what happens if I do this versus do that. And that's extremely, like, I mean, he's saying it. These are the first water cans in Poland, right? Like, it's kind of a big deal. It's a big, weight on your shoulders to be that guy to bring that information there. So, I think we got a lot done in one day. And I mean, I think we had almost 40 people there about that. And the biggest thing for me was like, these guys just wanted to train. Like, they wanted reps, they wanted to rotate, they wanted to get in, they wanted to get out, switch positions. Because we did it set up as 2-man teams for the most part, kind of driver, officer, or can man, and your tick guy would come in, do your search, hand tools, your basics. But something that we take, like, again, for granted, such a basic in our world, right? Such a basic thing is a game changer in my book for them. Because even we're at dinner Friday night, and Michał gets a text message of this guy's using the can at a little rubbish fire, 2-3 hours after the class. So, that was humbling in itself and pretty crazy to be a part of that. But I think it was cool, man. Like there's a bunch of guys that were very, very heavily involved, and it was awesome just to see, both, let's say, career volunteer from your basic farm, from your bottom line farm and your grunt to chief officers were there that were involved, and they were like, all right, it's, and again, like Michał said, my Polish, like, Dave and Ben came with me, and they were like, I don't know, you were like speaking a whole class in Polish, bro. Yeah, so that was it was a good experience, and I think it was good. I think it went well. I think everybody enjoyed it.
It sounds like a phenomenal experience. I mean, really something for the memory book, right? I mean, just to really be able to take that home, but again, to be able to have that impact to bring, what we would consider a basic tool here over there. But again, you know what? I mean, it's that's how progress is made, right? Through using these conversations and learning what's going on. And again, I'd love to see more of the European influence over here. There's so many great things that they do over there. I mean, just the apparatus, the way they lay some of that stuff out. And the operations too. I mean, and I think it's interesting you brought up, right? Only one or two firefighters going in. We saw that in Austria, right? It's essentially the 4 to 5 members on the back step. They go in, right? And I think the driver obviously stays with the rig. The officer stays outside the command where the crew goes inside. So there's I guess it would be like the captain would be in the officer's seat, and then the lieutenant would be in the back, and he would take the members in. But everything is crew cohesion, right? Everything is that group. You don't really break up. Not to say that's right or wrong, but that's how they do it, right? But again, they've got the staffing. They've got that staffing ability to do that, and I love that. I mean, I don't know if you saw it there, but like they call it the fire parade. We didn't get to see it until the very end, but when a fire call came in, I think it was 2 engines, the truck, the rescue, the air unit, the chief's buggy, or essentially it was a command van plus the chief's vehicle went. I mean, they call it the fire parade. It's great. And just, rig after rig after rig pulling out of that station. But it works, right? I mean, it's like going to a high rise, fire in Manhattan. Yeah. It's for 2 hours, trucks are coming, but they know the resources that they need, and, they deploy it right away, again, based on how they operate. So I mean, Michał, is that something? Do you think a water can will essentially be a tool in most fire stations or on most fire trucks in Poland in the next year or so? I mean, do you think, based on the interest in it and even the use of it that night, is that something that they would definitely be interested in? And your team training up members across the country?
Yeah, I hope that, but I know we need a lot of hours for training, and I think water can is something simple for you. No, it's not. This is something new, and I have some idea, because water extinguisher is not only one new simple equipment for us, because New York roof hook, Halligan hook. This is also something new for us, and this is something what is starting to be popular, but also only from this year. So I think there is a lot of difference in some very specific small and simple equipment in Poland. So first training, then of course we can buy a lot of equipment.
Okay, all right. And so what else would you be interested in? I'm just curious to see what else you'd be interested from from your trip here, and again, going to Indianapolis. What are some of the other things that you would like to see brought back to Poland that you could look at for your fire service to, at least explore, maybe adopt?
Searching. I think we have bad searching skills, and in Indianapolis, it was the first time when I saw how to vent enter search is working. I think this is very interesting for us. So I hope next time in Poland, maybe we can make some VES training.
Okay. And I hate to ask this, but I have to, right? So you say the searching is bad there. What do you consider bad? Why do you think it's bad compared to what you learned here?
Because usually when we searching the building, we have always working with hose line. So there is nothing like smoke diving in Poland.
Okay.
And as you know, sometimes this is faster, this is safer, this is better for people inside.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Rob, any other observations on that from when you
No,
were there?
I mean, I agree with him. Like, because that was one thing. Like when we brought the guys down into the basement room, like a couple of them were like, you know, "Well, I'm just here with the can." I go, the can is essentially your safety hose line as the hose line's coming in. And I know, like for us, like vent enter search or just searches. Like, I mean, where I'm from, like that aggressive initial search is what makes or breaks a lot of our operations, especially with the low manpower city and even the volleys. Right, on a good day, you might get 5, 6 guys, and then that second alarm that shows up 15 minutes later brings in the troops. But that first wave of that quick search is a huge difference maker at a job. And I think that, for me, how to see it, to bring it back, it can make a world of difference because now you could put those two together, those two concepts, because to get hats off to them on like their what's the word I'm looking for? Like not the accountability of the line, but the guys that are there are freaking smart, man. Like the Wojteks, we were hanging out with those guys both days, and they were good dudes. Like these, it's just I don't want to get all cheesy on it, but like the pride and like the commitment to learning there is huge, right?
Yeah.
In the Polish fire service. So here, like, let's be real, like I'd call a spade a spade. Here it's like, oh, I want to go to this class, I want to do that, and we do take a lot for granted, right? Because again, between the volunteer system and the career system, there are a lot of opportunities for people to learn. But like over there, you have to like really be into it to learn to get these opportunities. I mean, like Mike started his own thing to make this stuff happen, to bring it back. So, I mean, searching ahead of line happens every day here. Is it good? Is it bad? That's NFPA can discuss that and after action reviews, but we do know that it has results, right? We do know that a lot of grabs are made when you go ahead while guys are stretching in and things like that. So without getting too crazy on a tangent, I think it's a phenomenal concept that has to be shared. But again, as you mentioned earlier, in the US, that's the ladder company concept, right? And the ladder company concept changes based on where you are, even in New Jersey. From my town to the next town over, it's a completely different game on, when the ladder shows up. So I think it comes down to what Michał mentioned earlier, is that mindset of getting guys to start understanding more so like what it means. And again, that's always like when you start coming up with class titles and trainings, like it's not about that per se, it's just being a good fireman, and as long as you have all those little pieces in your mind and you have that aggressive mindset and you know the pros and cons of everything, I think that's where the potential goes up for better things to happen.
I think what I learned in Austria was discipline, right? And again, we spent, the majority of the time was in the career stations. Most of them are what we would call the two hatters, right? They are volunteering their community. It's a state-run fire service, right? So, they're already in the system, which I think actually made it very easy for them to just, volunteer in their community. So everybody that we had met in the career stations, we ultimately saw at the volunteer station, and that we were out there because that's how they've all gotten connected. But it truly is, it's a part of their lifestyle. The pride is run deep, and it's interesting because the pride seemed different there than it did here. And again, I don't know if it's just us as a smaller community, so it's a bigger sense of pride in serving your community. But their dedication to training, if you miss X amount of trainings, you're out. There was no wiggle room from what I saw there. It was you've got to follow the guidelines. And it goes back to discipline and training, right? It's the same thing every day. I mean, they had every place we went, they had training, available at their station. Some sort of, burn building, not everywhere, but most of the bigger cities did. And they were cycling through, when we were in Vienna, we were there at the headquarters, which was, 50 something bays between training and everything else. They had a rookie class going. They had companies, I guess it would be like in service training. They were coming in left and right. And it was just fascinating to see it because they came in, they went to the training. They weren't over there BSing in the corner. They went in, they did their training, they got that done. And then they had some downtime. So I was in awe by the discipline that they seemed to face over there, or they seemed to really, go. But again, it was a different sense of pride in the communities. So,
Well, I want to hit on that. That was the big thing too. Was we were fortunate enough to go visit two volley houses there, and career. We saw careers houses, but that was the biggest thing I think all three of us took back was just the pride in your equipment and you're like I've never seen places that clean.
Yeah.
Like the family business was building houses and those are clean houses when they're first built. like, where Michał started, we went back to that firehouse. That place was like a showroom, and I think that obviously, attention to detail. We always push that in our academies and the little things, and it's always going to make you better in the end. Well, it comes down to operation when things are under stress, but like, dude, I can't even coming back here, like I go to work and I'm like, guys, please clean up a little bit. I start cleaning more, but like, what I mean? Like it was, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, it's about being clean, but like it definitely reflects in the overall operation of a firefighter and the fire service. Because even that, like the camaraderie, the culture, it was just that's why I think the three of us had to kind of have that culture shock, that opposite version of it. Is like these guys were like, it was legit. Like we talk brotherhood in the US, that in Poland, what we experienced, that's brotherhood.
Is it comrades? Is that what you say up there, Miho? Do you call each other comrades, or is that just an Austrian thing?
You asking cameras?
It's like the
Nie,
brotherhood,
nie,
yeah.
jak się mówi razem? Braci czy coś takiego?
Braterstwo.
Yeah, braterstwo. Yeah, that's the brotherhood.
I hope we have the same brotherhood or sisterhood like in USA. I hope people from this class have feel the same feeling about brotherhood, and I'm thinking about what we can learn from the people from USA. Of course, I think brotherhood is one of this thing, but this is very difficult to learn something from you, that because people in Poland thinks that everything what firefighters in USA doing is very very danger. I don't know why. People in my country thinks that you have a lot of line on duty deaths, but they are not thinking about how big is your country. So I think this is one of the reason. So I hope we have to do a lot to share this knowledge together.
Okay. So, Rob, what was the biggest thing that you took away when you were there? What was the, that aha moment, whether it was for you or all three of you agreed when you were coming home? What's that one thing that you'd like to bring back to Passaic, or, bring back to the volley houses, or just in general when you teach around the country?
I'm going back. Whenever we can put something together, we're going back. No, but I think it does come down to just, not being or what's the word? Like I mentioned it earlier. Don't take things for granted. You know what I mean? Because like for us, something so simple, is new to somebody else. And it may not be Poland. It could be anywhere in the world today. It could be, listen, it could be town to town here, right? Somebody doesn't have a specific tool and the next town's wealthier and has three of them or whatever. But, it comes down to just being good people. And at the end of the day, if you're a good person, even in the fire service, life, whatever, I think it makes a good difference because again, for us, we were chatting and it turned into something. And that experience to go over there culturally, like even, for the guys that went with me, like when we visited my grandparents, like they said for them, that was unique to like live, like my grandparents live in a small little compound and, they live in your typical Polish apartment. And then to go when we visited Michael, go and we're getting pizza just like we would at home after training, hanging out. I mean, the brotherhood that's the biggest lesson. Honestly, it's like the brotherhood's everywhere. It's not just, on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. It's not just running around the area on socials. It's literally a world international thing that has to be, you gotta, when guys come to visit, give them the moment to say, hey, how you doing? You don't know who's coming from where. So when you get somebody knocking at your firehouse, hey, I'm a fireman in the Dominican or in Poland or wherever, hey, what's up? How you doing? Have a sit down. You want a coffee? Because you don't know how that's going to go back and transpire when those guys go back and say, hey, man, I visited some random town and everybody was, cool as hell and treated me like one of their own. That's where it comes down to. Because again, fires are awesome, right? We like going to fires, we like training, but just a simple interaction with one another, I think that's what makes it better. Because now next time you train, or if you catch a fire with somebody that other time, like it's seamless. You're like, again, going back to what we mentioned. I think you just put it on one of the snippets for one of the last podcasts. Like, comes down to just mutual respect. Like, if you respect the guy and have fun, and we're working together, it's a home run.
Yeah. Man, that's a great point, right? Again, yeah, you never know who's there, so always welcome him in, and again, the conversations are great, right? So, so Miho, what do you think is going to be next on training? What do you think you're going to have Rob do? Come out next, or have somebody else? Is it going to be search? Is it going to be VES? And And
I hope that, yeah, searching VES, maybe some ladder trainings, maybe vertical ventilation. I think there is a lot of things that we can learn from you. And after the training, I know that sometimes we have the same problem as we. Like for example, only 3 people on the fire truck, and in Poland, we like to say that we can't do something because we have too less people. But now I see you also have less people that you need, and you can searching. You can use the water can. You can use some more aggressive tactics. So yeah, I hope first we'll be searching.
okay. And Rob, what's next for you on this front? I mean, have you started working on the class, or are you just getting that put together right now?
No, listen, I mean, I was thinking about it yesterday before we jumped on this. I was like, what could we do next? I mean, just knowing Michał and his team and the guys there, like, again, something we take for granted, right? Is like you said, just our version of truck company skills, right? I think, like you mentioned, that's a home run because for us, still in this area, vertical ventilation is paramount. It works where I am with our building types, and I know we're getting close to time, but I think it all comes down to building construction and knowing your buildings, right? So, searches, yes, you can buy time and things like that depending on the building and the building layouts and whatnot. But I mean, I think it'd be phenomenal to go do a truck company series per se, if you want to call it that. Like you said, search is VES for us. VES and searches are bread and butter, right? You can have a basic scenario, or you could break it down like we did with this one, where you do tiny taskful things like that and little operation checks. But I think that'd be phenomenal to pull something off. Even the one day when we did the bailouts, they're doing the bailouts on the Petzl system. I'm like, hey, that's how we do a roof rope rescue. Like, what's that? I go, it's the things you see on YouTube when the guys go over in New York City. It's just, it's the same thing, same but different. It's just a different name, a different look. And at the end of the day, it's just a job.
Yeah, true, very true. Okay, guys, anything else before we wrap up today? Anything you'd like to say to the listeners today about what you've learned so far and what you've seen, and any advice you have for them?
Hmm.
Neat? Nothing?
Nothing.
No, listen,
Proszę.
Oh, I was gonna say again, for me, it's just you never know where you're gonna end up, who you're gonna end up talking to, and you never know where it's gonna lead, right? For me, did I ever think that I actually have the opportunity to go back to Poland to see my grandparents, where my parents came from, to do fireman stuff? Never thought in my life that I'd be able to pull it off. And now, just because we were having an Instagram chat, just chatting back and forth, now, it turned into something in my book amazing. It's game changing for me for just my fire cert and just my life, for both, for work, for the love of the job, and for who I am. It made a big difference. So
That's awesome. It sounds like a phenomenal experience. I'm glad you came on to share it, and I appreciate you introducing us to Miho. And I appreciate you joining us today. I'm looking forward to the next trip, and maybe I can tag along and do some photos and video. I'd love
Of
to
course.
experience that. We're going to be back out to Austria end of next year. They're going to be dedicating their new firehouse, right? And again, I think you touched on another great point, Rob. Just the pride, right? In their not only the rigs, but the firehouse. One of the stations we went to was built in the late 1800s. I mean, it was old, but it looked brand new. Like floors were polished. Every window was clean. It was a volunteer station, right? I mean, they just had like 3 or 4 rigs there. But you would think that they had, full-time staffing keeping that place pristine. Everything was as clean as could be. The gear room, everything was put away, nice and organized. Nobody was searching for anything. Everything was ready to go. They kept the gear off the apparatus bay because the bay was so small from the original place. Um, but I think, that was something that I came back to, again, growing up, going to New York City, right? And those places were so just beaten up, right? I mean, the city was old, construction's going on next door, and, so the floor starts to crack. It is what it is. It's just big city life. But out there, just, seeing that sense of pride in the station, always welcoming people in. I mean, I think they had, um, it wasn't like quite the community center that they try to have with some stations here in the US. But people stopped by all drill night when we were there, stopping by and to say hello and show the kids, to have the kids the opportunity to see the rigs and everything else like that. really just it was a true sense of community. Again, a much smaller community than a lot of what we're accustomed to here. So that makes it a little bit easier for sure. But yeah.
So you have to visit Poland now.
Okay, I'm on board. Rob's gonna let me know when you guys are going. I'll give him my schedule. But yeah, 100% I'm on board. And I would love the opportunity to meet in person, but also just to meet your members and talk to them and learn more about what goes on. Because not everybody can do it, right? And you know, to trek way back to my married life, right? My wedding was in Costa Rica. We actually had met with some of the bomberos. Previous trip, stayed in communication with them. You know, that was fascinating again for me, right? When we were there the first time 2 years before the wedding, you know, the closest jaws of life was 50 kilometers away. We were in a resort town. The closest ladder truck was 35 kilometers away. They had a single engine and a brush truck with 3 people to protect the resort town. Came back, they had more staffing. A ladder truck was only, you know, 15 kilometers away at that point. One of the instructors, actually, Tony Tricarico. So Tony was came to my wedding, and he's an FDNY captain. I don't know if he was retired at that point or not. But he hooked up with those guys in the firehouse, and you know, 6 months later, he was back down there with a bunch of guys teaching. You know, and stayed at the firehouse all week, and said they had never had instruction like that. Right? They did their state mandated training at the beginning of their time, and that was it. So, you know, he went back a few times, I believe, and he brought some other folks back over the years. And again, it sounded like a phenomenal experience. And again, just creating that, you know, sense of brotherhood. It is brother and sisterhood is across the country, no matter where you go, right? Knock on a door, as long as you're a firefighter, boom, you know, that's the entry ticket to get in and have some conversation. So I'll definitely be out there, Nico, for sure. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, again, thank you so much. And, you know, again, for International Firefighters Day, hopefully, you know, you take some time today to kind of look at and see, you know, what goes on beyond the borders here in the U.S. If you're watching in the U.S., if you're watching elsewhere, you know, we've got plenty of content on firehouse.com about what's going on here. But, you know, look around, see what else is going on. I mean, there's always something that you can pick up someplace else. And, you know, I know there's the conversation about the helmets and the apparatus being different. It works for them, right? And not saying it can't work here, not saying it can work here. It depends on every department, but it works in multiple countries over there, no problem. So it's always good to open your eyes and your ears and see what other people are doing. So guys, I appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.